In part 1, I compared the reminders app and timely bills because I wanted to build a better way to remember my bills. So I started building the first version. But while I was building it, I was also planning to go to Germany for my friend's wedding. So I went to renew my passport. After getting a new passport, my first instinct was to add its new expiry date to the reminders app. Then I realized, wait, the app I'm already building can remember this too. But the problem was, passport expiry is not really a bill. That one moment made me rethink the original direction. Hey guys, I'm Chandler. On this channel, I build small apps around real problems in my life. This is part 2 of building this app, and today I want to show you the first working version and what changed along the way. In part 1, I learned two main things. The Reminders app is simple and familiar, but it doesn't really remember payments or give bills a proper structure. Timely Bills, on the other hand, understands bills much better, but it feels closer to a full finance app than what I personally need. So the original idea was to build something in between, simple like the Reminders app, but structured enough for bills, recurring payments, and payment history. That was still the starting point for the app. But the passport situation showed that calling everything a bill was too narrow. An internet payment is a bill, but passport expiry, insurance renewal, or another personal responsibility may not be. The basic problem is still similar. I need to remember what it belongs to, when it's due, and later what I did about it. So I changed a few things from the part 1 direction. Bills are now called entries, mark paid became mark complete, and the amount is optional. This means the app can still handle bills and payments, but it can also remember something like my passport expiry without forcing it to behave like a bill. I decided to call the app Homii because I wanted it to feel like one home for the bills and personal responsibilities that I need to remember. For the first version, I wanted Homii to do 4 things: organize, schedule, complete, and remember. That's the main flow I want to prove first. This is the first version of Homii. There are 3 main tabs: Home, Items, and Schedule. Home gives me a quick overview. Items is where I organize everything. And Schedule shows what's coming next and what I completed before. Let's go through the 4 goals. The first goal is organize. Inside items, everything follows a simple structure: group, item, then entry. For example, I can create an item called house and place it under the property group. If I'm not sure which group fits an item, I can put it under other first. Once I open house, I can add the entries connected to it. For this example, I will add internet bill. This where I can keep the amount and other useful details without putting everything into a reminder node. Then I can do the same thing for my passport. I create an item called passport under personal, then add an entry called passport expiry. So house and passport are very different, but Homii can still organize both in a same simple way. The second goal is schedule. Under the same house item, let's add another entry called electricity. This time, I turn on date, choose when it's due, set the time, and make it repeat monthly. When the time comes, Homii will send me a notification. I can also add an alert and choose how early I want to be reminded. So I get one reminder earlier, then another when the entry is actually due. Moving on to the amount, bills or renewals are not always fixed, so the amount here is only the usual amount. And I can enter the actual amount later when I complete it. If an entry doesn't need a date, I can leave date off. It stays inside the item as an unscheduled record and does not appear in schedule. Once I save it, I can go to the schedule tab and see it in the list. The third goal is complete. For the electricity entry, I can tap mark complete, enter how much I actually paid, and choose the completion date. Like I mentioned earlier, the real amount may be different from the usual amount. For example, the entry says 200 bucks, but actual bill is 268, so I can just enter 268 and mark it complete. After I save it, Homii keeps a completed record. Since electricity repeats monthly, the next occurrence moves forward and I can see the new date here on the entry page. For something non-financial, mark complete still works without an amount. That's why changing the wording from mark paid to mark complete was important. The same action now makes sense for both bills and other responsibilities. The fourth goal is remember. This is where the schedule tab comes in. It has upcoming, overdue, recurring, and history. Upcoming shows the entries that are coming next. Each entry is marked as due soon or scheduled, and due soon means it's due within a week. Right now, everything appears in one flat list without any grouping. It works for the first version, but once I add more entries, the list can become harder to scan. So grouping is one thing I want to add in the next update. Overdue is simply for entries that have passed their due date. Recurring shows all the entries that repeat and how often they repeat, like monthly or yearly. This is one of the features I liked in the timely bills because I can understand the repeat schedule without opening every item one by one. History is where completed entries go. For electricity, I can see the entry details, the actual amount I paid, and the completion date. This is the part that the normal reminders app could not really give me. Completing something doesn't make the information disappear. So the schedule tab gives me one place to check what's coming, what has passed its due date, what repeats, and what I completed. So that's the first working version of Homii. The main flow is simple. Create an item, add an entry, schedule it if needed, mark it complete, and keep the history. It can handle a recurring bill like electricity or something non-financial like passport expiry without becoming a full finance app or general task manager. So, am I done with Homii? Definitely not. I haven't even moved on to part 3 yet, and I can already see a few problems with this first version. What if I want to skip one occurrence? What if I enter the wrong amount? What if the list becomes too long? Those are the problems I want to test next. For part 3, I will use Homii with real bills, renewals, and personal responsibilities, then improve the parts that actually feel incomplete. If you had an app like this, what's something important you currently keep in the Reminders app because there's nowhere better for it? And what do you think Homii should keep simple? Let me know in the comments. If you want to follow the build, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. See you in the next one. Peace.